Hi there, Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss American Trading. Thank you for joining us today for our podcast, Secret War on Cash, where we discuss various things, challenges, perhaps, upcoming things in our marketplace, our economy, things that are taking place even as we sit here today and speak. I have with me today my co-host, Chris Agulestos. Chris, how are you today?
Great, thank you. Good to see you.
Nice to be seen, as the old expression or saying goes. A lot has been happening. The year 2023 has certainly had more than its fair share, let's say, of challenges. We've seen the back and forth of inflation discussions. We've been hearing a lot about a pullback that we should be seeing at some point in the real estate market, specifically, in fact, the commercial real estate market, as the vacancy rates have been as much as 50% in major cities. Gold prices have been going up, which has been fantastic. We have a stock market that's been holding its own and doing pretty well. But they say that at some point there is an expectation we might see a pullback there as well. And we've got the growing market for cyber currencies, digital cash. That's something that now as we've discussed in previous podcasts, there is a move by banks to, or what they're looking to do is actually kind of move us full speed ahead into that realm. So a lot going on. And the reason I'm bringing this up and talking a little bit casually about it is because we're kind of taking a breath here at the near end of 2023. And I know that, you've been dealing with this with your clients, with prospective clients, talking about these issues. Now, I guess the big question, Chris, is what do we have to look forward to in 2024?
Yeah.
Are you excited for 2024? Let me ask you that.
Excited, huh? That's interesting. In some respects, I'm looking forward to a new year. I'm a glasses half full kind of guy. And that said, 2023, we did have a lot of issues, like you mentioned, but it seems like they were sort of able to keep things together, right? So we didn't have a complete meltdown in, the markets, let's say. But we're seeing a lot of glimpses of problems, like the bank failures we had in the spring and whatnot. So, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess, is the best term for it. But, there is a lot ahead of us, and especially being an election year, I think, it's there's going to be a lot of turmoil. That's for sure. It's not going to be a nice, smooth, easy 24.
Well, as yourself, I prefer or choose to look at things more optimistically. I don't think that there's any reason to be, pessimistic or negative about the outlook. I think it really is just more a matter of being prepared. As the expression goes, forewarned is forearmed. But with that said, today specifically, I just wanted to highlight, and I know you and I kind of discussed this prior to today's taping, some of the predictions, some of the forecasts that are starting to come forward for the year 2024. Specifically, in this case, as you see on your screen or in the link, if you're tuning in, what James Rickards, who has been pretty vocal about, some of the things over the years that he foresees, as it relates to the marketplace, the economy. But he came out with 5 forecasts for 2024. Now, you kind of touched on a second ago, we do have an election coming up.
Yeah.
And there, as the title of his article says, it's an election of dire consequences. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Chris, but it's looking as he highlights it in the article there that the Republican side, Trump is really running away with it in terms of the polls. It's one of those things where he does have Trump carries with him certainly a lot of baggage, and there's created a lot of division. So I don't know what really the prospect of him getting in the White House would be. But then we have Biden, the incumbent. I'm hard pressed to say that he's done much of any good for this economy. So I don't know what your thoughts are there.
Well, the thing is, either way, now typically, people that are, working with us are a little bit more conservative minded, right? They're wanting to, protect their assets, right? So they're the be prepared people. So they tend to lean more towards the right. But that said, either way, we don't know for sure what's going to happen. Rickards thinks that it's going to be Trump in office, albeit with the caveat that he may have to start it while in prison, depending on how all these felony charges go. But at the end of the day, either way, right, you're going to have, approximately half the country that's upset about the results either way. And like you touched on, it's just, our political climate is so divisive right now. And especially
Sure.
with social media and whatnot these days, people really get fired up and angry. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, you heard about people maybe at the holiday, at the Christmas table, arguing a little bit about politics. Now you have family members that won't even show up to the dinner because that's how divisive and angry the communication is.
Yeah, and it really, um, I've never seen it, to your point, as much of a hard line that people have taken and a hard stance
Yeah.
over one of those things that we're not ever supposed to talk to with people, religion and politics, and
That's
it
right.
is
Yeah.
it has created a tremendous divide. He then Rickards also gets into, which, in this podcast I don't want to get too deep into, but the main point, as you see in the article there, starts talking about the United States, China, global recession, gets into Ukraine, Israel, and
Mhm.
Gaza, and everything that's been happening there. And the significance, or the thing I'd like to touch on just with that, is to say, it's we're not just juggling our own economy at this point here in the United States. The influences that are taking place abroad and the effect that it has on us are so far reaching. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what's an issue, is that, again, it's one thing when we can manage our own household, but if we have to try and manage all of our neighbors' household as well, and whatever's going on in that household, which would be impossible to do, mind you, and
Yeah.
whatever is going on in that household had a direct impact on our household, that's a problem.
Yep. Yeah, we're so much more interconnected economically, with the rest of the world than we used to be. Now, a lot of the world has gotten used to relying on the U.S., but now the
Right.
U.S., like we import so much and we make so very little that we're reliant on the rest of the world in a lot of ways. And now, of course, like we've talked about, with BRICS and everything, people wanting to leave the dollar, it's just that much more pressure on our economy. So you're right. It's kind of like fighting a war on multiple fronts, and not even just like two or three, right? But maybe like 10 or 15. There's just so much going
Right.
on. And, it's, again, I think it's going to be pretty tumultuous. I'm hopeful that, it errs more on the side of positive than negative, but, maybe I have my head in the sand a little bit. I don't know.
Well, the next part of it as well, that in the article there with Rickards, the which I didn't like to see, banking crisis stage
Yeah.
two. I
Yeah.
mean, Lord knows, in our podcast and what everybody has seen in the news, the banking crisis has been horrible throughout the course of 2023.
Yeah.
And when you want to get to a point, being optimistic and kind of take a breath of fresh air, a sigh of relief,
Hmm.
now we're hearing about stage two. And
Right.
the problem is as you read through, what Rickards little bit he puts in here in this article, um, the things that caused the problems in 2023, they're still there. And
Yeah.
that's why when you read this, you're like, oh, it's the expectation of it coming should be, it's not just coming, it's imminent.
Right. That's just it. It's not a question of, if this stuff is going to happen, but when, and all at the same time, or maybe slightly spaced apart. That part of it we don't know, but Yeah, they're like I said, they kind of held together 23. Like it wasn't a great year, right? But it certainly wasn't as bad as it could have been. And how much is that glue going to really carry us forward into 24? And Rickards really doesn't think it's going to. There's just too much going on, too much weight to bear, if you will, between obviously the recession, the election, the wars, and the banking crisis, and really, the bank failures we saw in the spring. That was just like a small a touch. That's the tip of the iceberg, as they say, with some of the smaller banks, albeit they were big banks, but smaller, in the grand scheme of things compared to, JP Morgan and B of A and those guys. But, he's really saying that this next phase is going to encompass a lot more of the medium-sized banks, and maybe the bigger banks will be able to hold it together and gobble them up. But then that just sets us up for an even bigger banking failure, because we're going to be even more reliant on the too big to fail guys. And that's not a good thing for anybody.
Right. Well, finally, as you see on the screen as well, he finishes up just talking about markets in a general sense, using that nasty word we've heard so much, recession, that brings that up. And, it talks about potential for financial meltdown, and highlights all the major sectors getting hit. What is the energy market, defense, agriculture, mining?
Yeah.
From our perspective, I mean, the one plus, he actually said that gold and silver should be having a good year, and there should be a flight to quality. So that's great news for us. But in terms of the other markets, it doesn't look too promising.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's great for us and it's great for our clients. But, it's really a small percentage of the overall population that has really looked into, protecting themselves with precious metals. So, there's a few people that may be unscathed and even gain from this. But if people don't, really start getting on board and learning more about this, I often tell clients there's really no downside to getting into gold. I mean, if the world doesn't end in 2024, you're probably still going to have just good, consistent growth and performance, and most importantly, protection with gold. But again, a lot of people don't understand that, and that's kind of why we're here, is to help explain to them, how you can use it, how it will help protect you, and if like anything, it's kind of like maybe having insurance on your house. You hope you don't need it, but obviously, if you do, you want it there to protect you. And at least in the case of gold, it's insurance that can kind of pay you back with normal growth if nothing goes wrong. So it really is the best of both worlds for a lot of people.
Sure. Well, and as we've talked about numerous times, the key to this whole thing, and forget about where we are in 2023 or what's going to happen in 2024, throughout the entirety of our life, in every area of our life, the real key is diversification. Not having all your eggs in one basket, being prepared. The strength that gold and silver do offer in today's marketplace is tremendous. But again, that's not something that people should go above board with, or excuse me, not above board, overboard, I should say, with, by over investing into this market. But of all times, it is a marketplace and it's an asset class that's done, extraordinarily well. And the reason it has done well in large part is because of some of these problems that are brewing and continue to develop out there. One of my favorite parts of this article is how Rickards closes it. He's sugarcoating what he thinks is going to happen by saying, put on your crash helmets for a wild ride in the coming year.
So peaceful. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, exactly right. But again, I think, it's not a tough sell for people. If people are feeling the hurt of what's going on in the country and the economy right now, and, it's not a leap, it's not a stretch for someone to think, hey, these things that he's talking about are real. So anyway, absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for that. Like I say, we've got a quick close here to this year, and then 2024 will be here in a blink of an eye. So for those of you tuning in, thanks for doing so. And if you'd like any additional information about gold, silver, things just in general that are going on in the economy, the banking system, feel free and contact our office at 800-289-2646 or visit us online at swissamerica.com. Talk to one of our representatives. They're happy to give you the information you need, maybe answer some questions. And should you find this to be a marketplace that you feel the need to get involved in, they can help you with that as well. So that will do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you're not following us on social media, please do so. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more of these podcasts, as we will have a lot more information in the coming weeks and months ahead. And leave some comments. Love to hear from you. So I'm Dean Heskin. This has been Chris Aguilestos as well. If we don't talk to you sooner, please do have a very good holiday season. Be safe. And thanks for tuning in.